Hey guys, subscribe for daily content. And if you're shopping for gear, make sure you check out the description for the newest items at some of the very best online retailers. There's also links for some of the items that I personally recommend. Thanks!
What's going on YouTube? Metal Complex here, and today I've got a short little knife review slash knife overview to share with you guys. This is the Bestech Slasher. It is absolutely a budget knife, and it is absolutely one that is available right now. I will make sure and link it right down below. There's actually a few different variants of it, so if you don't like this color setup, there's a few different colors. It does help my channel when you use my links, but that is entirely up to you. Thanks so much to Bestech for providing this knife for review, and thanks to my patrons for supporting me. And please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. Let's go ahead and get a measurement of this knife. Overall length of the Slasher coming in at about 7 inches. Blade length about 3 1/8. Cutting edge is about 2.85 inches. Let's go ahead and do just a few size comparisons up against the Ontario Rat Model 1 and the Ontario Rat Model 2. It is about the same size as the Rat 2, but it is definitely a bit thicker, especially in the handle. Let's go ahead and put it up against the Demco AD at 20.5. How about the Benchmade Bug Out? And finally, the Spyderco Para 3. I don't know that we really need to do more than that. How's the action? This is an Axis style lock. If you don't know, Bestech Knives makes knives out of China, but they are one of the leading production OEMs in the world. So if you're one of those people that thinks because it's made in China it can't be high quality, boy, you couldn't be further from the actual truth, friend. It turns out Chinese production knives are ridiculously high quality, and they've led the way, especially in the budget territory, for quite a bit. This is Bestech's version of the Axis lock. It's a bar lock utilizing Omega springs, and it's very good. Thumb stud placement is good. There's the breakaway or the pull away is good. The lockout solidity is here. We'll just give her a tap on the old wood block here. Plenty good. It's locking out the way that it should. Swing it as hard as you can against a brick wall. I want to save it. Why? Does that prove? What does that prove to you? No, I won't be doing that. That's all the more proof that I need that the lock will stay solid during normal, reasonable use with a pocket knife. But yeah, thumb stud deployment is great, and it falls shut. This guy is running, as far as I can tell, yeah, it's running on bearings, not washers. It looks like it is, but it's actually running on bearings. Nice and smooth, really feels good. These do stick out a bit from the scales, which are already thick in combination with the liner, so that's something to be aware of. We'll talk more about that here in a second. Let's do carry profile, so thickness up against the Spyderco Para 3. And, you know, it's thick. It's not like, oh my gosh, like it's a Medford. You know, it's just for the size of the thing, it just feels a little bit thick. Length and height up against the PM2 and the Para 3. This guy is definitely shorter than both, and honestly, even with the, you know, the height of this little hump right here, it still is completely cleared by both the PM2 and Para 3. Really, the only area you're going to notice it in is it's just the scale thickness. Like when you're carrying it or when you're using it, you're only going to notice the thickness. That's the main dimension that you're going to notice, I guess is what I'm saying. Materials, we're looking at a tumbled D2 blade. In this case, we have micarta scales, and then we have not nested, full lipped steel liners with a little bit of internal milling there. I bet it comes in a tad heavy. Remember, we're looking at 3 1/4 inches of blade. And for weight, you know, not bad. I'm honestly surprised by that. I thought it would be like 4 ounces. So 3.5 ounces is not bad. Balance, hey, you know what? It's actually balanced right there behind the pivot, right? Now, reality and perception, right? The senses, you know, like you're going to judge it based on how you feel emotionally, based on your senses, right? So it doesn't weigh that much, and it is balanced, but for whatever reason, it feels heavier than it is. I don't know why that is. I'm just kind of letting you guys know, you know, what I'm feeling. But you can judge it for yourself if you pick it up. Let's go ahead and do a hardware check. I'll get out my tools as per usual. My tools are very inexpensive and very recommendable. You can find them right down in the section of my description that talks about the tools I use in this channel. We have a T8 pivot, and then these are going to be T6, the body screws. We've got a couple of T6 screws back here in the lefty pocket clip mount position and you know, in the pocket clip currently. This is a fully ambidextrous knife, so that's great. Axis style locks are not the easiest to take apart, but I would say they are definitely simpler than like a side opening automatic knife. which is amongst my least favorite to disassemble. You can do it. It's not the most fun thing in the world, but the fact that it's got minimal hardware, I mean, even though it's a T6, generally that's something I praise. This style of knife is just not going to be the most fun to take apart. So just be aware of that if you really feel like you have to take it apart. Let's go ahead and measure blade stock thickness. I'm going to guess that's 120 or so, maybe 115. What are we looking at here? Nope. A little bit more. I'm coming in at 123 thousandths. Okay, still on the thinner side. Let's go ahead and get into the meat and potatoes here. This is a pretty straightforward design, which is why I said it's going to be a short review. There's just really not a lot to talk about here. I feel like we've seen this design a million times. That's okay. This is a subtle variation of a lot of different knives out there. I can tell you right off the bat, as somebody who, kind of likes a little bit of heft in the handle, I appreciate contouring. Immediately, I just want it to be bigger. Like, if you like smaller knives, that's fine. But this build and the way that it feels in the hand, it's like if I close my eyes and I grab right here, it's almost like I feel like, oh, the blade must be like 3.5 to 3.75 inches. An 8.5 inch version of this knife exactly would have been super cool, especially at the same price point, right? There's this weird thing happening with a lot of popular budget knife OEMs where they're like, everybody definitely wants a smaller knife. And I mean, it's kind of true, but if you watch my channel, people absolutely go freaking berserk for large knives, right? I mean, the comically oversized ones and, just like larger than average, right? It's weird that so many companies are really zeroing in on this sub 8-inch line. That's fine. We should have knives that are there, right? But it's like, okay, that's great. Wow, you made it. Oh, your new knife is 7.25 inches or 7.5 inches. Wow, that'll go great with this other pile of stuff I have here that's exactly the same size. And you also chose a super duper generic profile and blade shape. Wow, great. We'll remember that. I mean, I'm being kind of mean here because truthfully, this is a good knife. It's a good design. But it's not that I know that from I carry this for a bit and just use it like I normally would. It's not that I'm drawing it from. I'm drawing it from the fact that I have seen, carried, and used knives almost exactly like this a billion times. It just is, right? In the most boring way, it just is. I think it would have been more interesting if they had made it a little bit larger. And that's not to say that small knives are not interesting because they are small. I'm saying we have enough of them. So if you're going to do a super generic blade profile, a super generic handle profile, and super duper generic materials with a generic, absolutely done before locking system, making the cherry on top, the fact that it's like, the size that it is, it's like, wow, I don't know. Maybe I'm being overly critical here. But I would have found this substantially more interesting as a larger knife. I just feel like we have enough options, right? We have more options in the budget territory that are smaller. From my perspective, just as somebody who, literally does 14 uploads a week and has over 3,000 uploads and stays on top of everything or tries to. I'm not saying I know everything. I'm just saying from my perspective, it seems like we have an overabundance of these. Anyways, maybe we should keep going here because I did say it was going to be short. Ergonomically, it is reasonable. It's about what you'd expect. The edges could probably be knocked down a little bit more. I don't want to complain too much because this is a reasonably priced budget knife, but these areas are a little bit sharp right here. Truthfully, in the hand, it feels all right. You can kind of choke up right here. It's not super duper comfortable. The most comfortable position is right here, and I can just barely get 4 fingers on it, so it's fine. Got a little bit of jimping here. Really wish that the jimping was extended a bit further, but it's not. That's okay. The pocket clip is okay. They did manage to recess the clip itself and the screws. And we have a subtle drop here, and then kind of a dip, and then up, and it's just about perfect. Not absolutely perfect. I like the MXG deep carry clip that's made for the Spyderco Para 3. I always reference that one, but this is pretty darn good. I'd give it a 95%. It's a pretty darn good clip. You can feel it just a little bit in your hand, but they rounded this out, so that's okay. Like I said, manipulation of the knife itself, manipulation of the lock is fantastic. I have no complaints about that. The blade shape is a simple sort of sheep's footy style blade, right? Some people are going to go, no, it's a Wardcliffe. Oh, no, it's a reverse Tanto. Oh, the blade shape police, they are fierce, right? Whatever you want to call this, right? Tuesday, octopus, Friday, high five surprise is what I always refer to it as. This is the shape that it is. It's sort of a rectangle-y, triangle-y thing, right? You can put your finger up here. Here's what I like about it. Let's talk about things that matter. Being able to put your finger up here and do draw cuts is fantastic. And the nice thing about having a shorter blade, this is something that Ben Peterson always talks about, is having the blade no longer than the length of your finger. I can understand why he likes that. It's nice to be able to get your finger up on the tip of that blade to control it while you do a precision draw cut, which is something that I do all the time. I am not pounding my blades through logs, right? I'm not scaling buildings with them or doing all this nonsense, this fantasy couch ninja stuff. Just regular stuff, right? For breaking down cardboard boxes, getting into packages, doing draw cuts, things like that, right? This is the type of stuff that I normally do. I used to prefer drop points exclusively because I enjoyed the aesthetic of the blade itself, and in contrast to the handle, which I generally like a straight handle, right? I like a good, clean, safe design. Like this, the ones that we see all the time, right? But after using sheep's foot blades, Wharncliffe blades, and reverse Tanto blades, and all the variations in between, I found that the shorter ones where you can get your finger up here and, utilize that is really nice. I know people are going to be quick to point out, well, that's why they keep making stuff like that, because it's the most utilitarian. That's fine, but people watching this channel right now, people, interested in this hobby, are sometimes interested in knives that go far beyond the realm of general or average utility. So while these things absolutely have their place, again, I say we have an overabundance of them. Sometimes it's fun to go outside of those barriers just for fun. And people who actually need larger knives or can utilize larger knives in their day-to-day basis will have more to choose from. So speak up if you're those people who actually likes to use a larger knife and you feel like, hey, why aren't you making more? Let people know, right? The flat right here carries out about 75 to 80% of the length of the blade. There's a nice swedge here. I do like Bestech's tumbled finish. Overall, the blade shape looks good. Again, I've seen it a million times, but it looks good and it will function. And D2, as long as it's properly heat treated, I don't have Rockwell testing equipment, but as long as D2 is properly heat treated, and at this level, I expect it to be at least 60 up to about 62. This is commercial D2, right? It's not like it's being custom made one at a time, like hand done or all that. It's, a lot of times companies like to hit this stuff at 59 to 61 or holding back the urge to throw up, 58 to 60 I've seen. To all, OEMs doing budget knives, stop doing that. Please stop it. 58 is a hilarious, it's not even funny at that point. It's not even a joke, right? It's almost like just intentionally taking a dump on the knife, then packaging it, and then shipping it out to everybody, right? I'm not saying that's the case here. 5961 is what I usually see. It's the same sort of copy-paste that we see applied to steels like M390. M390 and D2 have the same general optimal heat treat zone. I'm not suggesting that anything that is over 60 is good and anything that under 60 is bad, but in the case of D2, and in this territory, it should be 60 to 62. Get it there. Get it there. I'm tired of just blindly accepting these 59, 58 Rockwell blades, but it makes it easier to sharpen and it makes it hard. It makes it tougher. Well, you kind of lose the overall benefit of the specific composition. There are already inexpensive steels that emphasize toughness and ease of sharpening, that have a specific balance to their cake mix that could be utilized there, right, at that Rockwell range. But if we're going to use this steel, let's optimize it, right? I understand geometry and all that plays a role, but should be easy to do even when we're talking about a budget knife. Anyways, holy crap, he's fired up today. There's no lanyard thing. What? That's great. I don't care about the lanyard, so that's nice. We have a micarta backspacer. Like I said, ambidextrous mounting position for the clip. There's not really much more to talk about here. In and out of the pocket, this was a breeze. No issues there. Stop pin located in its usual position with a little bit of shouldering. No blade play whatsoever. They really nailed that. Really feels good. No pivot lash, pretty consistent in here, and then a nice snap. You know, this is an axis lock, sort of when the lock bar reaches the event horizon on the rounded tang of the blade, it sort of snaps into place. And then we have good centering here. It's maybe slightly off to one side. Is it dipping? Maybe a little bit. It looks like maybe it's slightly off just a bit. I don't know if I really want to nitpick that. This is a $63 knife. Honestly, I would have been a lot more impressed at about $50, maybe 55. 63 seems a bit high, but what's not a bit high these days? Honestly, there's not a lot to complain about here other than the fact that it is just boring. This larger would have just made it more interesting. I feel like people would have talked about it a lot more. It would have made it cool, right? We have enough EDC knives. We have enough like, oh, we're setting out to make the ideal EDC folding knife. We have a billion of those. Like, not literally, but almost, right? I like to see the interesting stuff. I will continue to, give credit where it's due. The way that I judge this is it's a decent price on a, tried and true EDC design. Scales are a bit thick, good materials for the money, hoping they're heat treating that D2 correctly. All in all, this is going to be a long-term, reliable, inexpensive cutting tool. And generally speaking, I recommend it. I'm going to put it in my Cheap Knives I Like playlist. But it's also very, very boring. And I feel like companies should not shift gears and exclusively make large knives. Just make more of them. Make more large budget knives. People want them. I promise you. Anybody who watches this review, hearing those, they will echo it. Make more of them. There are some out there. I'm not saying there are none. I'm saying it seems like there's way more little budget knives than there are larger ones. All right, that's going to be pretty much it. It's already 16. It's already way longer than I intended it for it to be. Please make sure to follow me on Instagram at metal_complex. If you enjoyed this video, leave a like. If you'd like to check out my other content, I do, of course, have lots of videos of knives that are either expensive or inexpensive that I do or don't like, so check those out. And if you enjoy all my content, go ahead and click on the Metal Complex logo right there and subscribe because there's definitely more coming. Thanks again for watching, everybody, and have a great day.